Is Donald Trump trying to provoke a war with China, maybe even as a campaign strategy? Check this out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. I don't know if you caught this mess that was happening in the White House yesterday. This was truly bizarre, where Donald Trump comes out, he was talking about China specifically, and I'm going to get to that in just a second. But then he goes off on Joe Biden. That's illegal. I mean, it's literally, I don't think a single president in my lifetime has ever done this. There's a law against this. It's called the Hatch Act, which says that you can't use federal property for campaign purposes. You can't, from a member of Congress's office, can't conduct campaign activities. You've got to go to a separate place to do that. When we were doing our show from Washington, D.C., in the first couple of years we were in D.C., we were in a building right down the street, about a half a block or maybe a block and a half away from Union Station. And it was about 2 blocks from I believe the Rayburn House building, the office building. And, or maybe it was the Hart Senate building, because a number of, I almost named some of them, but there was, just one elevator in our building, and I was constantly in the elevator with senators. And they were going to these little rooms. This was a 6th-floor building, and they were going to these little rooms that they rented to do their electioneering, to call, dial for dollars and things. And, in fact, most of the ones that I met were Democrats in the elevator. Well, Trump broke that law yesterday. His daughter, yesterday was Bastille Day. His daughter had her penultimate let them eat cake Marie Antoinette moment with her new website about, find something new, right? You've lost your job? Well, hey, why don't you just become a broadcast engineer? Yeah, that's one of the categories they recommended people check out. I'll tell you, I'm in the broadcasting industry. Clear Channel, now called iHeartMedia, just did another huge round of layoffs. There's no jobs for broadcast engineers that I know of. I mean, it's just, and it just goes on and on. So this weird stuff, I mean, this was kind of the psychodrama background yesterday, the weird stuff. But in the middle of this was some very serious stuff that I've been talking about on this program for some time now. And I point out when it kind of pops above the surface, but, like an iceberg bobbing in the water, most of it is not visible and doesn't get talked about that much. Specifically, last week I shared with you how in the South China Sea, we had 2 aircraft carrier groups, 2 battle groups, that were moving into areas that China had claimed for itself. And we provided them with a list of areas that we say, we're not recognizing your sovereignty here. And the Chinese response to that was to tweet out a statement about the 2 new weapon systems that they have that are specifically designed to blow aircraft carriers and destroyers out of the water. Mini submarine-based systems and missile systems that would just take us out. And basically what they said is, you think you're going to, sail through Chinese waters? You're only doing it because we're letting you. And if things were serious right now, you would be dead. Because we control these waters. Well, that was last week. This week, Congress passed this law I'm not sure exactly when it passed. I believe it was a couple of weeks ago. But it was let me get the name here. It was a sanction. It was called the Hong Kong Autonomy Act. And basically what the Hong Kong Autonomy Act does is it authorizes the administration. And Congress passes laws, and then the executive branch, the president's branch, carries those laws out. And it authorized the president to put sanctions on Chinese companies, on the government of China itself, and on Chinese individuals. And that was the whole point of Trump's Rose Garden speech yesterday. That was what it was supposed to be about, was his saying that, we're going to be tough. He says, I'm the toughest president ever on China, because he thinks that his campaign is going to be all about Joe Biden and China. In fact, I'm seeing ads right here in the Portland media market where they're clips from Joe Biden 20 years ago talking about how great international trade is. And yeah, Biden's always been a free trade guy by and large, but still, he's not totally crazy. But Trump is going to try and portray Trump, who's manufacturing his Trump products in China as we speak, says he's going to take on China. And so he came out and he basically trashed China for what they're doing in Hong Kong. And China now today says we're going to retaliate. And I mean, this is serious stuff. China on Wednesday said that they vowed to retaliate, saying that the Hong Kong Autonomy Act, quote, maliciously slanders its Hong Kong security law, which is being used right now to round up pro-democracy advocates in Hong Kong and throw them in jail, and their families. And they're also arresting the families of Chinese people who are outside of China in order to force those people to go back to China, where they will be put in prison. Saudi Arabia has done this for years. A lot of autocratic regimes do this. You hold families hostage. And Beijing is saying, okay, that's it. We're going to punish you back. And China is now threatening to put sanctions on some people inside the Trump administration. But the point where I wanted to take this is that I think that we've gone beyond the edge here. When the month that I lived in China back in November of 1988, I believe. No, it was November of 1987. At that time, I was studying acupuncture at a hospital in China, and I was living in that hospital. In fact, one of the guys who was one of my roommates sent me an email earlier this week. I haven't heard from him in years. He's a psychiatrist, and he was there studying acupuncture also. Brilliant guy. Name is Pablo. But in any case, and we had two Japanese roommates too. But at that time, the tallest building in Beijing was the 10-story Marriott or Hyatt or Hilton, whatever. I think it was a Hilton, actually. And it had a pizza restaurant and a steakhouse in it. And that was the place where people went to eat, right? Although, for literally 2 or 3 cents, you could get a just great Chinese meal, which we did almost every single day. But it was a very poor country at that time in 1987. And now its economy is rivaling the United States, and soon will surpass us. So isn't it time to say, okay, we built China by moving all our jobs there and moving all our companies there. Obviously not all of them, but so many of them. And, let's reverse that, because China is not a democracy. But this breast beating, this chest thumping stuff, that's the kind of stuff that leads to war. Don't we have the ability to say, yeah, that country may have a crappy form of government, but it's not our job to change it? We walked away from Vietnam in 1975, and, Vietnam actually has not had a single COVID death because they locked down early, they did masks, they did testing, they've got aggressive contact tracing. Now, Vietnam's not a government I don't want to live under. It's a communist dictatorship, essentially, but we were able to let them continue to survive after dropping more bombs on them than in all of World War II. I mean, isn't it time to say, okay, enough already? We're just going to disengage from China and Saudi Arabia and some of these other countries as well.